Good afternoon, I'm Anthony Lugg with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Jamaica under hurricane watch. Hurricane Elsa wreaking havoc in the Caribbean. And in sports, American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson accepts responsibility and apologizes for using marijuana. Now the details. We begin our newscast with news on the weather. Jamaica is now under a tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch. This as Hurricane Elsa continues to strengthen. In its latest bulletin, the Met Service says dangerous sea conditions associated with the hurricane are expected to spread across the Caribbean over the next 24 to 36 hours.
So we could be seeing slightly stronger winds by the time it gets into the central portion of the Caribbean. It will probably be increasing in strength to a category 2 by the time it gets into the center of the basin, but not before it passes the island chain. But we're still making our projections for rainfall and for wind to affect mostly the eastern and northern sections of the island between Saturday and about Monday. The projections from the tropical desk are for as much as 150 to 250 millimeters of rain across sections of the east and north. We're expecting somewhere between 25 and 50, or about 75 at most, across the western portion of the island.
Meanwhile, Caribbean countries including St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada and Haiti have been feeling the impact of the hurricane since morning. There have been reports of severe flooding, downed trees, and damage to buildings.
Winds are extending as much as 200 kilometers from the center of the system. So this means that even though it is still a reasonable distance from a lot of the islands, they are still going to be experiencing hurricane force winds. And this is likely to continue for much of today because the system has showed some signs of slowing down, but it's still moving fairly fast. So for most of today and at least part of tomorrow morning, the island chain should be under the effects of some very strong winds, cloudy conditions, and quite possibly some flash flooding, or at least a threat of flash flooding.
Over in Barbados, there is widespread structural damage as Hurricane Elsa moves through the country. Earlier today, we spoke with news producer at the Caribbean Week in Review, Renee Sion.
Residents of Barbados actually went to bed expecting Tropical Storm Elsa, but we actually awoke to high gusty winds starting from around 4 or 5 o'clock at the north of the island, and that's where it started. We had heavy rainfall coming with these high gusts, and around 7:49 a.m. from monitoring the Met Office, they actually upgraded to a Category 1 hurricane. Now, from the initial reports, we're seeing a lot of widespread damage across the island to property. There are also a lot of fallen trees. We've been warned to stay indoors, especially because of the fallen, the electricity pole. So we're being told to stay inside because of the danger that are posing. Now, areas that are normally flooded, as you can expect with the heavy rainfall, there's flooding in those areas already. We have a lot of roofs that are blown off, mostly in the south of the island, in the Charnos area. But in the north of the island, there are also galvanized fences that are blown. There's debris that's all over. Like I said, the trees are fallen. In the north of the island, we've seen reports also of residents asking for assistance to actually move from their houses because the roofs have been completely torn off. Now, like I said, these are all preliminary reports. We're not sure, but thankfully, so far, we've heard of no loss of life, just damage to property, widespread damage to property. And this is quite unexpected because, like I said, everyone went to bed. Yes, there was a shutdown from the island on Thursday so that the residents could prepare, but we were not expecting a Category 1 hurricane, which we're experiencing. And it's now around 10:30 where the storm has the winds of east down. The rains are still there, but we're being told that we could expect some more rain. I think they say up to 6 inches of rainfall in Barbados, and to expect some more flooding.
To other news now, further disruption in the public health service may have been averted, but the opposition continues to raise alarm. Opposition Senator Peter Bunting is accusing the government of trying to muzzle junior doctors. He was speaking at a PNP divisional conference in Manchester yesterday. Signs of the times. Junior doctors sending a clear message to the government in a dispute which resulted in chaos in the public health sector Thursday. Weighing in, Opposition Senator Peter Bunting said the matter has reached crisis level.
Sending home doctors in the middle of a pandemic, that is not prosperity, that is pandemonium, and that is what the JLP government is raining down on the health system. Imagine how much years and how much study and how much qualification a doctor have, how much sacrifice them parents go through. Yes, sir. And when them done, them going on 6 months contract. How come? How come?
Junior doctors returned to work on Friday morning after a marathon meeting Thursday involving representatives of the Ministry of Health. There was no settlement regarding the doctors whose contracts expired yesterday, but there was an agreement that outstanding gratuity payments will be made by the end of next month and that short-term contracts will only be issued in special circumstances. Mr. Bunting argues that it's unfathomable that the ministry wanted to issue short-term contracts in the first place.
This government, yes, sir. This GLP, Andrew Willis-led government, them don't want people to have the freedom of speech to talk out about what is happening in the health system. So they can use the 6-month contract like a sword of Damocles over them head and say, whoop your mouth, and you get no contract renewal. That is the real reason why they're using these 6-month contracts.
Turning his attention to the national vaccine program, Mr. Bunting raised issue with the fact that Jamaica is among Caribbean countries with the lowest inoculation rates.
That is what you get from a PR government. Pure public relations, no substance.
With the Delta variant threatening efforts to contain COVID-19 globally, it's still unclear if the strain is present in Jamaica. Speaking at the Ministry of Health's weekly briefing last evening, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Besesa Mackenzie says 200 samples were sent to the PAHO testing lab in Brazil, while another 92 and 100 samples were sent to Panama and the CDC respectively for the testing of the variant.
We really have had some problems in terms of getting the genomic sequencing done. And a lot of that delay has been because of transportation, not because we have not had willing partners to do the testing, but the transportation problems have delayed us getting the samples out, even to the extent that transportation routes, because they have to be long-winded, have resulted in damage to the samples that made not all of them at some times suitable for testing.
She says the first set of results should be known in another 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Dr. Besesa Mackenzie says the country is now better able to identify samples for testing.
A method in place where we can pick up whether or not there are mutations. So mutations can be quite varied and can sometimes not be of any significance at all. But we can now pick up if there are any variations from the normal wild type. And those are the samples that we have been sending for testing for genomic sequencing to see if those mutations show any variants of interest or variants of concern.
76 new cases of the coronavirus were confirmed on Tuesday from 776 samples. The country's overall case count is now 50,242. The positivity rate now stands at 8.8%. 2 deaths were reported in the last 24 hours, bringing the death toll to 1,082. One of the COVID-19 related deaths was previously under investigation. In the meantime, 111 persons are hospitalized with a respiratory illness. 11 are critically ill. There are 18,487 active cases. And it's now time for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back, continuing the news. Portland is now on the police's radar following a spate of violence in the parish since the start of the year. To this end, the Area 2 police say it is on a drive to restore peace in the parish. Sandy Williams reports.
Since the start of the year, Portland has recorded 9 murders. According to the head of the Area 2 Police, Assistant Commissioner Calvin Allen, the murder rate is too high.
Portland is of concern. We have seen some incidents in recent times that really and truly doesn't reflect Portlanders. Some incidents that have resulted in murders, the loss of lives. So there are several things happening.
The latest murder recorded in the parish was 3 days ago, when the body of a woman was found with multiple stab wounds. Her house in Orange Bay was also set ablaze.
Most times the police or the general public is just made aware of some of these issues when they reach the volcanic stage, when a life is lost, when a house is burnt down, when someone gets chopped up.
ACP Allen says the police will be maintaining a strong presence in problem areas. As a start, the lawmen swarmed the streets Thursday.
Over 20 persons so far has been arrested for not wearing their mask. Over 45 tickets have been so far issued for motorists found in various violations, from the non-wearing of seatbelt to other breaches of the Road Traffic Act.
In the meantime, the police are urging residents to help in the efforts to curb crime in the parish.
We want for persons in the community that are of repute, persons who citizens will look up to. We want for that sort of a partnership. So when there are issues, we can deal with them at the molil stage instead of leaving them unattended and they becomes volcanic, as we have seen in the past. Portland is a parish that is known for its tranquility, for its tourism attraction. And so we intend to keep it like that.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
The St. Mary Police now have a station at the Ian Fleming Airport in Boscobel. The station, which will serve the airport and surrounding communities, was constructed to the tune of $48 million by the Airports Authority of Jamaica. Minister of Transport Robert Montague describes the station as a first-world facility.
They have barracks upstairs. There is an office for the superintendent. There is a narco office. There is an office for, I think, Sissoko. And it's not Sissoko. But there's an office to interview people privately. And not for me, but for some people, there's a holding cell.
This partnership has resulted in the seizure of a significant amount of illegal firearms, drugs, ammunition, and other contraband, along with the arrest and conviction of several persons as individuals tries desperately to breach our borders. Our robust focus will certainly continue at this airport, as collectively we are partners in the lawful protection, security, and safety of our borders.
Central Westmoreland is set to benefit from several infrastructure projects in the coming months. The projects were announced by Cabinet Minister Everett Warmington, but as you'll hear in this report from Dwayne Anderson, the way the tour was done may cause some controversy.
Central Westmoreland MP George Wright and Cabinet member Everett Warmington were observed touring sections of Westmoreland on Wednesday. Mr. Warmington said the visit was to see firsthand the problems facing the constituents.
Regardless whether the person is an independent, a member of the PNP, GLP, or no P at all, once a person is elected by the people, that person is recognized as representative for the people of that constituency. And Mr. Wright is the legitimate member of Parliament for this constituency. And on that basis, we're here today. He has lobbied us relentlessly for different projects in this constituency. I find him to be very hardworking, He does the he's up. We come here and he still want us to go all over the place that we don't have on the list.
Listen also as Mr. Warmington seemingly invites Mr. Wright to come closer to him during the interview, a move likely to raise some eyebrows considering the attempts by other elected officials to distance themselves from the embattled MP.
We came here today to... Where's George? Yes, he must turn up here, sir.
Mr. Warmington then proceeds to list the other elected representatives who accompanied him and Mr. George Wright.
Minister Hutchinson's here with me to show support. And my two councillors are here from St. Catherine. They are here to give you support fully. So you know you have support out there.
Observers have also suggested that even though Mr. Wright retains the legal authority to represent the people of Central Westmoreland, he may have lost the moral authority due to the allegations he faced. But Mr. Warmington, who is no stranger to controversy, suggested that Mr. Wright has lost no power.
Come into the constituency when these projects are going on and see what George Wright is doing as an independent member of parliament. He has as much influence as any of us who sit on the right-hand side of the speaker or the left-hand side of the speaker, because he is elected by the people and must recognize as such. And I recognize him as the member of parliament for Central Westmoreland, not as independent, not as JLP, not as PMP, but as the member of parliament for Central Westmoreland. And as far as I'm concerned, the minister without portfolio in charge of works, he will be treated in that regards throughout his term. Okay? So George, continue the good work.
Thank you very much.
All right?
Thank you.
You have support here at all times.
Several infrastructure projects, including road works, were approved following the tour. Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
And for the latest in the world of business, here's Cody and Barrett with the Business Minute.
In business news, the renewable energy sector is calling on the government to implement an effective energy policy. In a press release, the Jamaica Renewable Energy Association said all imports on photovoltaic components are being charged 20% duty, and all lithium batteries are being charged an additional 20% GCT without notice. This has forced importers to either pay the increased taxes or leave their containers at the ports. Importers are also being charged 43% on the cost, insurance, and freight value of the shipment to clear batteries containing trace of lithium, which are made to be installed as part of a renewable energy system. The industry is therefore appealing to the government to align itself with international best practices and initiate the process for suspension of the Council for Trade and Economic Development CARICOM external tariff. In business internationally, officials from 130 countries have agreed to overhaul the global tax system to ensure big companies pay a fair share wherever they operate. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development's framework includes a global minimum tax of at least 15% on multinational companies. The plans could generate about $150 billion in tax revenues a year. Coming this Sunday on the Business Review, a flexible service to the world of auto detailing. We take a look at one mobile car wash business. And that's it for the Business Minute this week. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And we head to a quick break. When we return, we'll have your midday sports report. Simon Preston is standing by. Simon.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson has taken responsibility and apologized for using marijuana while noting that her infraction came while dealing with the news of the death of her mother at the American Olympic trials last month. Speaking in an NBC interview on the Today Show on Friday, Richardson gave an
Right now, I'm just putting all of my time and energy into dealing with what I need to deal with to heal myself. So if I'm allowed to receive that blessing, then I'm grateful for it. But if not right now, I'm going to just focus on myself.
USA Track and Field, in a statement on Friday morning, said Richardson's situation is incredibly unfortunate and devastating for everyone involved. Meanwhile, American Brianna Rollins McNeil will not be able to defend her 100-meter hurdles title at the Tokyo Olympics after losing her appeal against a 5-year ban for breaking anti-doping rules. McNeil was provisionally suspended in January and given a 5-year ban a month ago for what anti-doping officials called tampering with a part of the doping control process from a January 2020 missed drug test. The Olympic champion also won the 100-meter hurdles at the 2013 World Championships in Moscow. To football we go now, as world number 1 Belgium will face 1968 winners Italy in the quarter-finals of the European Championships in Munich this afternoon. Kick-off is at 2 o'clock Jamaica time. At sports time, Spain were leading Switzerland 1-0 in the opening quarter-final in Russia. The quarter-finals continues on Saturday as the Czech Republic battles Denmark, while England entertains Ukraine. To South America we go now, as defending champions Brazil will face Chile in the quarterfinals of the Copa America in Rio de Janeiro this evening. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock Jamaica time. At 4 o'clock, Peru will battle Paraguay in quarterfinal 1. On Saturday, Uruguay will face Colombia, while Argentina will play Ecuador. And finally this afternoon at sports time, Jamaica were leading Puerto Rico 1-0 in the 2021 Davis Cup America's Group 3 tennis competition in Panama. Roland Randy Phillips gave Jamaica the lead with a 6-3, 6-love win over Sebastian Arcilla. At sports time, Blaise Bicknell was leading Quinton Vega 6-4. The Jamaicans are searching for their 3rd straight win of the tournament. And that is where we leave the court for now. For your midday sports report, I'm Simon Preston. Anthony, it's over to you.
All right, thank you, Simon. Just before we go, very unfortunate situation there with Sha'Carri Richardson. Your reaction?
Yes, indeed, America has lost potentially a medal prospect heading into the Olympic Games. But for Jamaica, a lot of Jamaicans will be smiling because it could possibly a 1-2-3. Shalane Fraser-Price, Elaine Thompson-Hero and Sharika Jackson.
Oh, in that order?
In that order, yes. It could be in that order, yes.
We'll make note of that, all right? And that's the Midday News. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon. I'm going to make note of that, you know.